Appreciate Mr. Reed recognizing that it's cool administrators, because that's certainly the way we feel about ourselves. Got to turn it on. Technology is so wonderful. So, as was mentioned, I've been in this role a little over a year now, and I had the exciting opportunity of doing this last year when I was in about 2 weeks into the position, and I felt like there was a lot of things that I didn't know at that time. Some of those things, I know now. Some of them maybe I don't wish I knew, but anyhow. One of the things that I spent quite a bit of time talking about last year after being on the job for a couple weeks was the great people that we have working at Grand Island Public Schools. And I really, after being there a year, really would say that I have an even greater appreciation for the great people that work there now than I had a year ago. And when we talk about that, a lot of times we talk about our teachers, our administrators, those people that you're going to be most familiar with. But I think we don't see the people that are behind the scenes as much as those people that are out front. And I think that having an appreciation for what our paraeducators, great people that, many of our paraeducators are bilingual, and that's such a critical skill for us to have, and that really bridges a lot of the gaps that we have to bridge in order to work successfully with students and families. So I think, thinking about that group, thinking about our custodians and our nutrition service people, I really try and make an effort to spend time talking with those people and have grown a really great appreciation for how hard their jobs are and for what a great service they do for our students. So again, I want to emphasize that as I start off today. One of the things that, as we worked our way through last spring and really started talking about, well, where are we going? What do we need to do? What should our plan for 23-24 be? And how can we best take the great people that we have and get them working in the best possible way? And one of the things that now what'd I do? I'm 0 for 2 on this so far. Somebody else better have the clicker. So one of the things that we really felt like we needed to do was to really simplify where our focus was. And so I think as we've moved through this last year, that's been a continuing theme for us, is how can we really concentrate on the work that needs to be done in our schools and really focus that work on what is the best way to help our students grow. And how can we best ensure student success? And so as we've done that, we've really tried to zero in on 3 focuses. Number 1, having great instruction. Number 2, really having a solid positive support system. And then number 3, working in our professional learning communities. And so we really tried to zero in on the things that ultimately are what good teaching is all about. And as we think about this was a district-wide focus, so it's not just our teachers that we wanted this to happen at. We wanted this to happen with all of our employees. So again, whether a student is in a classroom learning and obviously having these things apply, we also wanted to think about that student that's in the lunchroom and how's the right way to go through a lunch line? How's the right way to, empty a tray? And again, instruction, and then positively support them when they do it right, have some corrective action when they don't do it right, and then continuing to bring our groups together to grow. So that's been a real focus for us. Now, Mr. Reed talked about the exciting finances that you were going to get to hear about today, and Mayor Steele disappointed. He didn't talk about finances at all. So I don't want you to go away mad because you didn't get to hear about any finances. So one of the things that we've spent a lot of time, and I apologize to those of you that have been beat up with this information before, but we really feel like it's critical for our community to understand our financial situation. And so as we've gone through this past year, we've really studied, where are we going to be, not just this year or next year, but the year after that, and how are we going to continue to move ahead financially. And that's raised some concerns. So as you look at this, you'll see at the top where we've identified our operational cost increases. And obviously, paying staff more was something we had to do. All of you that are in business, understand that it costs more to employ people than it ever has. And so as we've dealt with paying teachers more, paying, classified staff people more, there were some pretty significant increases in what our operational costs were going to be. Everything that we buy costs more. So we have $1 million plus in just costs as we move forward. And then one of the things that we really identified was a need to build our reserves. And so when you look down there, that last line, that $2 million in cash reserve, we had to put money back in so that we had a rainy day fund. So when you look at that as far as our operational cost increases, and you see that $10.7 million, that's a pretty daunting number. But then when you look down below at our revenue sources, it doesn't look so bad because we gained, $3.1 million in what we get from the state in equalization aid. And we have about $2.3 million worth of ESSER's dollars, the COVID relief funds that we're still going to be able to use as we move through this year. And then finally, the valuations, which was kind of a hot topic at one time this year, went up significantly. And so that allowed us to generate more revenue through our local property taxes. And that amounted to about $6.7 million, $6.2 million. And so when you get down to the bottom, you would see that our increased revenues were a little over $11 million. We had $10 million in increased expenses, $11 million in increased revenues. Should be in good shape, and we are. Where it gets a little scary is when you move on to next year. Uh-oh. That didn't... So, okay, you can't read it, that's all right. I'll walk you through it. So when we look at next year and we look at those increased operational costs, again, they're going to go up. We're going to pay teachers more. We're going to pay our classified staff more. And, we're going to have that increase in all of our other costs. And if you get to a point where you add those numbers up, you're going to see about a 6.5, not as bad as the 10.7 million increase from the previous year, but about a $6.5 million increase in what it's going to cost us to run our schools next year. Then when you get down to the revenue sources, that's where it gets a little bit scary, because now you're going to see that we have a $6.2 million decrease in dollars from the state. And that actually ties right back to the $6.2 million that you saw in increased property tax revenues. The way the equalization formula that the state uses works, it says that if you have an ability to pay at a certain level, then the state doesn't need to fund you. So if we have $6.2 million more in local property taxes, then we have 6.2 less in state aid. So again, when you get to the bottom, you're going to see that we're about $10 million short when we look at next year's budget. So with that, we've really set a goal of cutting about $5 million, and that's what this next slide would represent, is where those cuts are being made. and they've told me that I'm out of time. So I'm not going to be able to go into all these cuts, but real quick, you can see that most of those cuts are spread across the different areas. We've got cuts at the district level, we've got cuts in the elementary, the middle, and the high school. High school was where the largest amount of cuts are going to take place, and that was largely done as we looked ahead by restructuring our academies. And so I think in terms of the academy structure that we have, what we're doing there is we're shrinking the number of academies by 1. We're shrinking the number of pathways that we're going to offer from 20 down to 11. And I think our high school administrators and staff were very cognizant of the importance of maintaining as many options and opportunities for our students as possible. And so as they did this, they worked towards that. So that gives you a quick snapshot of our finances. We're working through it. We feel confident that as natural attrition happens, we're probably not going to have to actually reduce very many people. We know we're reducing positions, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to move people from one position to another and take care of that. And so with that, the one last thing that I did want to mention, because it's good things, you know, when you talk about cutting budgets and things like that, I did want to make sure and mention that in terms of our state testing and the way schools are identified, we had some really nice growth across Grand Island Public Schools. And you'll see there that our number of great schools moved from 2 to 4, our number of good schools moved from 7 to 11, and I think most importantly, our number of schools that really need to improve went from 9 down to 3. So I think we got some really positive movement taking place across all of the schools in the district. And with that, I will call it quits and turn things over to someone else. So thank you.